Clinton's library is ugly. Is it near Little Rock?
Yes.
And then you've got this one that's ugly. Let me just say that Bill Clinton and Barack Obama are not in the Democratic legacy of good old Harry Truman from Independence, Missouri, right?
Right.
So one of them wanted that, is it his, Clinton's library is ugly. Is it near Little Rock?
Yes.
And then you've got this one that's ugly. And in the age of digital records, you don't have to really go there anymore unless you want to see them firsthand. There's some advantages of that. But they're multimedia centers. And the weird thing about them is they build these, on the left, they build these museum, multimedia centers, exhibition halls that they call libraries at places that are supposed to be iconic with their Democratic roots, and they're never there. Bill Clinton never went back to Arkansas. He was glad to get out of it. Hillary didn't. The Obamas will never go back. They have their mansions still there.
Yeah.
But they like the other mansions much nicer in Hawaii, in D.C., and Martha's Vineyard. So
Victor Davis Hanson really digs deep into the modern political landscape, and it's a pretty eye-opening take. He doesn't hold back when talking about two big names in the Democratic Party, Bill Clinton and Barack Obama. What Hanson argues is that these two are not like the older Democrats such as Harry Truman, who was all about sticking to his roots. Instead, Clinton and Obama seem to have moved away from their home states, Arkansas and Illinois, and built their presidential libraries in places that are more like fancy multimedia centers. It feels like they're more focused on staying relevant in Washington or living in luxury places like Martha's Vineyard or Hawaii rather than connecting with where they came from. Hanson also points out how these former leaders and their families, like Hillary Clinton and Michelle Obama, continue to build their influence after leaving office. Instead of returning home and reconnecting with their roots, they create a kind of elite political class. It's like they're more interested in keeping their power and influence going, rather than remembering where they started. The video gets into the future of politics too, with Hanson talking about how Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are positioning themselves. He mentions how Trump is actually ahead in some national polls now, which might surprise a lot of people. According to Hanson, Trump is focusing on the issues that really matter to voters, and he's bringing more people into his corner, like Nikki Haley. He even cites Nate Silver saying Trump has a 60% chance of winning the next election. It feels like Trump is gaining momentum, and that could spell trouble for Harris, who Hanson says will struggle if she has to keep up with Trump. Hanson doesn't just talk about national politics, though. He also takes a hard look at Governor Walz, calling his vice presidential pick one of the worst decisions ever. He criticizes Walz for his erratic behavior and says he doesn't add any real value to the Democratic ticket. In fact, Hanson thinks Walz might be more of a liability, especially because he has a history of lying about things like his academic achievements and awards. Hanson really paints a picture of Walz as someone who is out of touch and makes things worse whenever he speaks. In the end, Hanson's message is clear. Modern politicians, especially in the Democratic Party, seem to be more focused on staying in power and keeping up appearances rather than going back to their roots and connecting with regular people. It's a pretty strong critique of how things have changed in politics over the years. Hanson's insights might not be what you expect, but they're definitely worth considering.
presidential library, at least you could identify a former president. They went to Washington, they fulfilled that's what George W. Bush did, is back in Texas. But it's this new bad habit of going to Washington and then never staying there and just being a junkie. Part of it is because their spouses then try to have spin-off literary or political or, careers like Hillary and Michelle. So it's all about the Democratic Party trying to appease a growing number, in this case, Somali, but mostly Muslim voters in Michigan and Minnesota. And that's what it's all about. There's a Siena poll that came out today that has Donald Trump ahead in the national poll by 1 point. That's not known as necessarily a conservative poll.
No.
And what you're seeing is gradually as we always say, in the son of also. And then suddenly, Donald Trump has erased that lead that Kamala Harris enjoyed. I don't know if it was the RFK or Tulsi Gabbard advocacies or Vivek. They're all doing out there. Or J.D. Vance has really come into his own as somebody that the left is afraid of on talk shows on the weekend, because he kills them with 1,000 cuts. But whatever it is, or maybe it's Donald Trump's greater emphasis on the issues, or his ecumenicalism of having, Nikki Haley on the stage and Brian Kemp, but whatever he's doing, it's working. And he's caught up now, and he's ahead in the polls, at least in some of them. And Nate Silver says he's ahead, 60% chance plus of winning. And that's going to force Kamala Harris to come out. Because if she gets down by 2 or 3 points, and given what the polls record are, that she might be down 7 or 8, she will become an Obama-like fixture. She'll want to talk every chance she gets, and that'll be a doom loop. The more she talks, the worse it'll get. Which gets back to Governor Walz. That will go down, even if they win, that will go down as the worst vice presidential pick, much worse than Dan Quayle, which was laughed at.
Right.
But there's nothing that he brings to the ticket. He doesn't bring a state that otherwise she wouldn't have won. He's herky-jerky. He gets on the stage. He looks like he's insane. He's hyperactive. He points to everybody. He does he's very sensitive to charges that he was in China over 30 times. And what does he do? He gets on the stage and he does a kind of a caricature stereotype Chinese bow. He folds his hands and he bows down to people as if he's stereotyping China. I don't know what he is, but he's also a pathological liar. Is there anything he hasn't lied about? He lied about an award he got, as if it was singular and unique, and they gave him to a lot of people. He just lied about his PhD and said he was a recent PhD. He was basically terminated, because if you don't finish your thesis after 7 years, most of these stories were minor, but they all are sort of like, dropping oil drops in water. They coalesce and then they form a blob. And the blob that he is a liar, because he's lied in so many trivial and existential fashions about his biography. And he doesn't bring anything to the ticket. And everybody says that she won't talk to the press because she doesn't know anything. He doesn't talk to the press. He just, he took his hand and waved it away because he can't say anything. And he's really hurting her.
Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, share your thoughts in the comments, and hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on the latest content.